And welcome back to the next episode of the Rock Shop Podcast. I'm the owner at Ride the Tiger, and tonight there are two new customers to the Rock Shop, and they are.
I'm Ariel, and I met Ryan in college, and I am also an aspiring comedian, have a background in theater, and yeah, just doing my best.
And I'm Nicholas Gilliman. I've known Ryan since our band days back in high school. I'm currently getting my degree in theater performance studies at Kennesaw State University, and hopefully we'll be going to go get my MFA in acting next fall. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Someone's a star of a new movie coming up. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that'd be Ariel. No, I don't know if you are or not, but no, yeah, I was in Running the Rat Race, which Ryan wrote and directed. So hopefully we'll get to see that soon. We just got invites to go to the premiere, which is nice.
Yeah, the big cast and crew screening, pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's been up with you guys? What have you been up to lately?
So basically, past year, I have been working an office job, focusing very hard on saving up, which I've been pretty successful at, thanks to my great support system and my family. And then literally just within the past 2 weeks, I made the choice that I wasn't going to pursue theater anymore. I wanted to pursue comedy specifically because it's always been my passion. Like, I've always been a character actor. So I've been working on my stand-up, which I've actually had a lot of stand-up written, just never had the balls, really the desire yet to perform it. And then, funny story, last Sunday, on Monday, my friend connected me with invited me out to an open mic night. I told Ryan a little bit about this. And she ended up not being able to show up. I didn't know that. I get there, she's not there. It was already pretty dead. The only people that were there were like 2 patrons and then the rest of the comics, who were all guys. And I'm like brand new, don't know anybody. It was really not like the guy who was hosting was really nice. I came up and introduced himself and put the list down in front of me. I was like, here you go, sign up. And I was like, okay. And I did. And I did absolutely terrible. Like, I mean, bomb, terrible, really bad. But I'm going on Thursday, or I'm going tomorrow, to a different one. And I'm actually prepared this time, and I feel much more confident. And yeah, we'll fucking see.
Yeah, for me, I mean, as of recently, I've been in quarantine, which has been sucky, so I've been able to go out to do much recently over this break. But I've just been doing a little bit of everything here and there throughout college. I've been doing some directing, been doing some writing. I've written a couple plays so far in college. I've directed a couple plays. Just recently, I was in Spitfire Girl, which is a musical based off of a 90s movie by the same name. So I did that. That was the week before Thanksgiving. I had directed and performed and coordinated a student-led cabaret back in September. Assistant directed Romeo and Juliet. And I did a show called The Grunch, not The Grinch, The Grunch, Grunch. It's I was a director for a homeschool theater group, and it was a musical that used the plot of The Grinch, but it's all about this kid, Rudy Grunch, who just absolutely hates musical theater. And I think it's so funny. The plot of it is that his aunt is a New York Times theater critic. So Grunch's idea is, hey, I'll get my aunt to come and I'll like steal other sets and props and costumes. So then their show will be so bad, my aunt and her critic friends will review bum the heck out of the show so that these kids will never be allowed to sing or dance or act ever again in their lives, and that he can have some quiet.
That literally sounds like the Grinch meets the producers.
I was
It
about
is.
to say, yeah.
It literally is.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's quite funny, and like all there's so many funny songs, and most of the songs are just rip-offs of other songs. Like literally a song called Jazz Hands is just all that jazz from Chicago. One of them is straight up the opening to Music Man. But yeah, but in the next semester right now, because before COVID I was prepping for this, but I can still prep for it after. But I'm doing SpongeBob the Musical next semester, which will be I'll be I will be in Electric Skate, which is similar to Boys Who Cry. They're like the boy band for that group, but they're more yeah. But they're more punk rock than they are like heartthrob boy band thing. But yeah, so they're and then various other ensemble parts. I know I'm gonna be a tap dancing scene enemy in it too. But what I was up to before everything went down for me was every day I was going onto the treadmill and I was practicing singing and running at the same time, and it was hell. But but I have to train my endurance to be singing, and that. So yeah, and then also prepping for grad school by just making sure I have all my monologues ready. It got changed to a completely virtual event because I was supposed to go to New York. It's a whole ordeal, but it's gonna be a live virtual event now, and that'll be the weekend before my birthday. So that'll be exciting. Yeah.
Hey, good for you, man. I'm glad you're getting all kinds of work out there. Not just acting, like directing and assistant directing. That's really neat.
And then also teaching too. It's a lot.
Everything's been a lot lately. It's these happened just December. It's like everything was kind of cruising, ups and downs, but like for the most part we were kind of getting through it, and then just like literal atomic bomb, like the moment December hit. Which it makes sense, but it's insane how bad it's been.
What do you mean?
Yeah, and I mean, you can see that reflected with, because I know we're specifically talking about like theater stuff, but if you're looking on Broadway right now, essentially
that was
everything.
One of the big things. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, essentially everything is shut down now, and like, because like one of my Christmas presents was a ticket to go see Moulin Rouge because I was supposed to be going to New York and I was still gonna go, but like now it's like because the grad school, because the trip was for the time that I was gonna be there for my grad school auditions, and like. It's crazy, but yeah, no, it's really hard to do theater in the time of COVID, just because because I mean I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but it was a couple nights ago. I think it was like right before. No, it was the 24th. I think it was a Christmas Eve performance of The Music Man, and because it's being revived on Broadway with Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster.
Right.
But Sutton Foster wasn't able to go on. And,
I know exactly the video you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah. It was a swing. And I guess for those who don't know what a swing is, they're kind of like an understudy, except they learn everybody's parts. So they're responsible for knowing. So like typically you'll have like maybe one or two, because I was a swing for Bring It On when we did it at KSU, but you're typically assigned. Okay, like I was an ensemble swing, so like I had to learn all the ensemble tracks, but on a Broadway, like with the person who had to step in for Sutton Foster because she had to go step out, essentially had to learn the whole show by herself and had her first rehearsal the day of that she had to go on.
That is so scary.
Yeah, so
I was in Shakespeare in Love my senior year of college, and I was an ensemble member, and I also understudied the Queen and the Nurse. And what they would always fuck with me because frankly they knew I didn't study as much as I should have, had something gone wrong for me to be prepared. So like we'd be in the middle of a run and my friend Sam, who plays the Queen, would be like, "Hey Ariel, I don't know if I'm feeling very good today. And I just like run to get my script, but don't do that to me. Like, don't. But it is true. That's one of the big things. Like, I kind of had some big epiphany moments. Like, they were very corny. Like, I was on my girls' trip, and I was like, comedy's what I meant to do. But it really stemmed from witnessing the whole Broadway is back, and then absolute fire, like shit show. I'm just thinking about how it must feel, because I have friends who are in Broadway shows, and I can't imagine that feeling of not just, again, having to deal with the uncertainty of your career, but to have that kind of dangled in front of you, like, it's back, never mind. It's heartbreaking, and it kind of pushed me to accept the fact that I don't want to be so heavily reliant on a show or on a company or on an organization in order to be able to do what I love. I don't want it to be under all of those conditions. So I felt that something like comedy gave me a little more agency on what I do, where I perform, when I perform, how much I perform. And it was just, it forced me to accept that I need to, now that I have more of the confidence that I knew I needed to gain over the past few years, that it's time for me to move on to things that are better serving. So it's interesting how these things kind of just will completely flip our intentions and our life plans around, and not even in a bad way, just helping us learn.
What's really interesting is, I think, specifically with this, is that because like there was a big thing with like regional theater back in like the 70s, when that started to spread out and diverge more into like regional theater companies becoming a lot more popular than your premier
New York
houses. So what I think might happen, because the thing is, like, the Alliance, because I've worked at the Alliance, I have a lot of friends down there, and like I know a lot of people in the industry in Atlanta, and nothing is shut down here, even though like cases are crazy. Like they haven't had to shut down a show because of COVID between cast, like, because like, and I feel like some of you might see is there might be a lot more focus happening on regional theaters coming up rather than Broadway, because Broadway is so unstable right now. But regional theaters are finding ways, because like in New York, because in New York everything is so condensed. So if one show gets a COVID case, more than likely they're sharing dressing rooms and all that with other shows, like maybe another theater that neighbors, and they share a little sliver in between the buildings that houses them. Well, not houses them, but like other dressing rooms. So you might see, but like with the Alliance, the Coca-Cola stage, that's its own thing. Actors Express, that's its own thing. Horizon is its own thing. Blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of theater companies in Atlanta. I could keep going. But since they're all separate, they can do that. And then also on top of that, they can provide more unique things, because I know Alliance provided like an under the tent experience right outside, where they did a bunch of concert series of shows, or they do touring productions in different places and site specific works. Like before COVID, they did a production of Midsummer Night's Dream at the Atlanta Botanical Gardens. So like you might see a lot more unique regional theater productions like that are a bit more accommodating. I mean, there was Serenbe here in Atlanta, but for anybody who knows theater, knows what a shit show Serenbe was. I would know. I worked with them on a show, and it was insane.
I've heard
and I know.
Name.
Yeah. You've probably heard Brian Cloudus a lot more than you have heard Serenbe.
Very true.
Yeah, and that's not what we're talking about other stuff. But if you guys
crazy
want,
how fast shit moves around that community.
Oh, because also
it's everywhere.
Because he keeps trying to rebrand himself under Geo Productions, which is a specifically conservative only theater company.
I saw though. Oh my god, it was really. It's very bizarre, but I'm like.
The long story short, he got canceled because he's a horrible human being. Just did a lot of crazy bad stuff. There's a lot more you can read up on elsewhere, but and people were pointing him out for his racism and sexism, all the isms and icks, even though he would always use the "I'm gay, so I can do whatever" kind of thing. He's like, "I'm gay." It's like, yeah, but that's being racist. But no, he was just not a good person. But anyway, so instead, he got canceled during the summer of 2020, and instead of being like, you know what, I'll learn from this and like grow as a person, no, he just went and started another theater company. But it was like, I'm only gonna allow people who like me to work for me.
Conservative only. I mean, who's even on that troupe? Like Roseanne Barr.
Yeah. So, so what will happen is a lot of people who don't know Brian Cloud, like there's a group of people in Atlanta, I think, who are just dedicated to finding out wherever he's doing a new production. And then like people who are hiring him through his company or whatever, and then people go hire him like, yeah, hey, here's all the stuff he did. You might not want to be associated with him. And then like, so they've been just shutting him down across the country, and it's been the funniest thing to watch.
And it's so interesting because I'm sure he goes around saying, "Woe is me! I don't like because of a," and I'm like,
nope.
freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequences. You did say terrible things, and even if you choose not to consider how those things you've done have hurt others, that doesn't mean karma won't remember. It doesn't mean it won't come back.
But that is the power of like regional theaters specifically
100%.
that I was mentioning, is that just because, you know, the Alliance here in Georgia is the Alliance, like they're pretty close to Broadway level. They're on a whole list. I forgot what the name of the professional circuit of theaters. Like Florida has like 3, I believe. Georgia has 1, which is the Alliance. But like ones that are essentially like on par with Broadway, that's where you can have a pre-Broadway tryout and stuff like that. It's a whole legal thing, but yeah. So, but like if you work at the Alliance, more than likely the artistic director there, Susan B. Booth, she probably knows all the other artistic directors at least on an acquaintance level. You know, and then there's people like Freddie Ashley at Actors Express, who does know almost everybody, knows every new playwright. That makes it big because he does a lot of new play development. So, but it's just one of those things where it's like they all know each other. So it's one of those things where it's like with the film industry, everybody knows if there's like a mess up, you know. So like, I mean, obviously, like we know about, you know, with Alec Baldwin and like that horrible shooting accident thing that happened, but then everybody knows about that. But it's even worse with like theater, because like even though not everybody might not know what goes down or who you are, the people in the community make like literally, like people like to joke about blacklisting, but oh no, I've seen people be blacklisted in Atlanta. You see him do some stuff, and I never see him work again.
I know we had someone in I don't know if it was a school of theater, and I don't even know if it was blacklisting, because this guy was just terrible from the start. But he was also like just he was really going the director route, and just kind of all of the things you were describing, but not gay. He was straight, very predatory, creepy, but also using props that were dangerous, all of these things. And so, you know, there were constantly issues with like getting him to actually face consequences. So people just straight up just used talking shit to their advantage and made sure no one in at least the School of Theater would ever work with this person. Because we realized not only does he not deserve that platform, but if he is going to openly disregard the safety and well-being of his cast, then at least though that possible cast has the right to know what kind of director they're going to be working with.
Yeah, and something too that is really interesting with like how you bring up like not only just like the power of like somebody being a director and being like, oh, that's the end all be all, like, and I feel like you get that kind of stigma with like film a lot more, but with when it comes to like theater, especially now, you see a lot more people actually speaking up and be like, no, let's like get away from well, that's just the way things have always been in terms of like theatrical practices.
Of
Like
course.
with
Which
like
is
things.
my least favorite thing in the world is that mentality.
Yeah, and like, cause like one of the big things are 10 out of 12s, and like so yeah, for people who don't know what a 10 out of 12. Sorry, I know I keep bringing stuff up, and I'm like, oh my God,
Like,
I don't know.
these are not theater people. We need to explain.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
a 10 out of 12, it's
Yeah.
typically so you have a week of tech, and then you have like your show, or we have a week of dress, depending on your show. You might have 2 weeks of tech. I had a show that was 2 tech weeks, but because it was all online, so we had to make sure the the technology side of it was good, and then we had our technical rehearsals. But then, but yeah, so the 10 out of 12, it's a 10-hour rehearsal. So technically it's 12 hours, but you have like a 2-hour dinner lunch break thing in between. But yeah, so it's essentially it's typically like a Sunday right before your show week, and it's a big day with the actors, the crew, and all the designers, all the artistic team. Everybody is in the room, and it's a very slow, long process. And typically at the end of it, you do like a dress run, but it's essentially a 10-hour rehearsal, and a lot of this came out because there was a huge I forgot the union name, but it was essentially the stagehand union, and there's a big strike happening because a lot of them were being mistreated, not being given their breaks, not being paid accurately, just a whole lot of messed up stuff. And one of the big things that's been like, it's like people are like, no, we're willing to take a longer rehearsal period, or like a longer like schedule, than having a long day where, because like a 10 out of 12, like for the actors isn't bad. It still sucks, but like compared to that, for a designer or somebody who's actually like teching a show, it could be a like 20-hour day. Like I've read stories of people where they didn't stop working for 20 hours.
I feel like, because I have heard about, that kind of thing. I feel like when we did the movie, I was pretty good with hours, but then again, I mean, we mostly just did like afternoons and nights because Megan had that long drive.
Yeah, and with film, it's very different too, because like if we're in a theater, we can manipulate a lot of different variables. Like there's one of my favorite things in theater is the suspension of disbelief. Like you come into the theater, we're not actually in Ireland right now.
What?
We're not in Brigadoon. We're not there. But with film, there isn't that suspension of disbelief. That's my biggest thing, is that with film, because like the biggest thing I always see is like like you see, like I'm thinking of like Lincoln with Daniel Day-Lewis. It's Daniel Day-Lewis is Abraham Lincoln. Whereas with theater, you see the difference between is and as. So like with film, if it needs to be daytime, it'll be daytime.
Nick, I'll have you know my basement looked exactly like Brigadoon.
Yeah, but yeah, no. So like with film, there's only X amount of things you can do. So if it has to be a nighttime shoot, then you do a nighttime shoot, and there's only a set amount of time that you can do that. But I guess where the danger of that could come in is if you had day and night scenes that you had to work on, you're like, oh well, let's just keep shooting the whole day, and then like once we get here, we'll just shoot this. But yeah, so with film, you can at least have a bit more, because a lot of it is, I would think, a bit more time sensitive depending on the project. But yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I just thought you were done.
No, I was.
I think that's like, just from an outsider looking in, like, you two know me. I don't really have any experience with theater or anything. But I think the one really interesting thing about it that I think goes underappreciated, because I think it's not a hot take to say theater is not valued as much by society as like film. You think that's about accurate?
Yeah.
Possibly, but I also think it's not nearly as accessible and
Sure.
mainstream as film is, because it's not so much as people are like averted to it.
Yeah.
More often, they just don't really understand unless they have a family member that is in the show. Because frankly, there's a lot of bad theater out there. Like
A lot of
there's
bad
a lot
movies,
of,
too.
just like there's a lot of bad movies, but it's less of a process to just go online and just watch a movie and be like, oh, that was terrible. Going to the theater is going to the theater. It's taking time out of your day, going to a place, sitting down, and like keeping yourself there and watching it.
No,
And
and
unless you have that incentive of someone in the show and that then exposes you to theater, a lot of people just don't really consider it. It's not really been in their realm of entertainment.
But I think the crazy thing is with theater that I don't even really think about often is just, you go to theater and obviously it's different if you watch a live recording, you're physically there. You can see, Hugh Jackman in Music Man. I'd see Hugh Jackman at like Comic-Con. That'd be cool. I think people would be like, oh my God, you saw him? You could
Hugh
actually.
Jackman is one of the best, most versatile. He is brilliant in both the world of theater and the world of movies. Like that's big as an actor. Like
yeah.
that attests to his talent.
But that's just like crazy. You could just see him like work. Not even like, oh, I saw him in a booth and I said,
Yeah.
hey. Just watch him do his like masterful like craft.
Because one of the best theater going experiences I had, this is also another reason why I saw a 7.5 hour long play. It was on Broadway. I saw it summer of 2018. Yeah, it was Angels in America. I saw both parts 1 and 2, and it had Andrew Garfield and Nathan Lane in it. And they had both just won their Tonys for their roles in that play, but still, it's like one of those things I bring it up. I'm like, yeah, I saw Nathan Lane and Andrew Garfield in person. I saw a show that had Jim Parsons, Zachary Quinto, Matthew Bomer, Andrew Reynolds, and then a few other guys that I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but like people who are like fairly big, like really close. And that is one of the cool things with live theater. And then also, in theory, what I love about live theater is that like every show you should go see is different a little bit every time. Whereas with film, you take it and then that one take, that movie's not going to change. You're not going to boot up, Disney Plus and Princess and the Frog is different.
That body has blonde hair. Like this wasn't the same. No blonde.
Yeah. Whereas with theater, like depending on what production you go see, who is directing it, what minds are behind it, you could go see the same show. You could see, let's see, what's a show that you could go see like Rent, like 5 different times by 5 different companies, and have 5 very different experiences.
And even on that same thought is, you could even go see a show by the same company, and depending on if there's an understudy or hell, even I would oftentimes like change up lines where it was appropriate. Or my friend Brad, when we did Adam's Family at FSU, there's the whole were you folks this for the mezzanine, that people will change the difference, was rehab right for Charlie Sheen of blah blah blah, and he would change it every night and like come up with something different. And then one night, of course, and this was when Trump was still in office, he was the presidency right for the Trump regime, and we were losing it backstage. And he was an idiot. He did it in front of like the patron night with all of the old white patrons that probably voted for Trump. So it was not that. But even that backstage, we always had these little games that we would plan, like how many laps would Alec do? What would Brad say? So it's just, it does provide a lot more, in a lot of ways it's very rigid, but it's a lot more flexible because, like you said, a movie's going to stay the same every time you watch it, but theater, there's always going to be something different.
No, and that's what, like, as an actor, it's always so much fun, like, being able to, like, because when I was doing Spitfire Grill, every night I would learn something new. Even though like rehearsals had stopped, I was finding out new stuff. I was like, okay, you know what? Now I have an audience to feed off of. I find that this works. It's always a puzzle you're constantly working out. And I remember one night, one of my friends, it was our last show. She decided, I'm gonna try to make Nick break on stage because there'd always be a dumb line. We had a scene together, and she'd always try to like, and like the line she had to say, "If you've got the thread, you'll find the needle." That was the line, and like it was her supposed to be her imitating her mother. It didn't have to necessarily be comedic, but she made it comedic, and it was really funny. But the last night, she did the dumbest thing ever, where she starts doing like, typically she'd be like, "If you've got the thread, you'll find the needle," trying to talk like her mom or whatever, and like she would change it up every night, try to imitate somebody different. But the last night she goes, "If you've got the thread, you'll find the needle," and then like I'm just sitting there, I'm like, what the
100% a choice I would make without a doubt in my mind. That's so
and
funny.
like, but like the thing is, she's like, "Ha ha ha! I made Nick break," and then she's like, but then she's sitting there, because she forgot that if I break, she breaks. So she's like, "Wait, oh shit, why did I do this?"
She's like, oh no.
So like everybody was laughing like hysterically in the audience, and it's a black box theater, so everybody's like right there. They're not in an
Very
audience.
close
Like
to each other.
they're right next to me. Like I was almost stepping on an audience member at the time.
Uh,
So it's just like, so that is something that's nice with theaters, that you can have a bit more of those improvisational moments. And if something does go wrong, like I saw a production of Wicked where Nessa Rose, she's in a wheelchair. She's supposed to just storm off stage. Ryan, were you on the band trip to New York?
I was, yes.
So you remember how Nessa's wheel in her wheelchair came off? Yeah. So with Nessa Rose, she wheels off stage after being upset with Alphaba. Those who haven't seen Wicked, Alphaba and Nessa Rose are related. But and what she's supposed to do is storm off stage, wheeling herself off stage after another character. But when Ryan and I saw it with our band, with our high school band, one of the wheels popped off of the wheelchair and went into the audience. And it was just one of those things where I sat, because I had seen it the year before with the chorus, on the chorus trip. But it was a great moment, because it was funny because they couldn't really help her off stage because the wheelchair was broken. It just couldn't move. But so Nessa Rose had to get out of the chair. But what was great about it was like, it's stuff like this where like there's such a small detail that I never noticed about her costume, is that they had a failsafe in the costume for it. They had like the Forrest Gump leg braces, and like when she got up, she like stuck her legs straight, and like so that she could like kind of walk, and like had like a whole, like this is like, it looked rehearsed. And like I remember one of my friends looked over to me like, was that not supposed to happen? And I was like, no. But it was so cool because with theater, you just gotta find a way to make it work. Sometimes in films people get applauded way more for this in film. Like, oh my gosh, they just kept rolling after this one moment happened, and it was so cool because of an accident that happened. Like I'm thinking with like Heath Ledger's Joker, how when the explosives didn't go off, people were like, oh, the timing of that was so cool, but it was it was an accident because the explosives didn't go off, so they couldn't do another take. But yeah, and like the whole reaction, people were like, oh my gosh, it's priceless. But theaters is doing that almost every day, and everyone's just like, yeah, it's theater. So I always think it's so funny, like, yeah, stuff that theater that film gets applauded for, theater does a lot more. But I mean, both have their virtues and stuff like that. I just thought that was something interesting to point out, with like how you never know what you're gonna get, and theater is great because there is that element of surprise and like improvisation that can happen at any moment.
It could always change for whatever reason. And sometimes it becomes the best part. Like when I did Addams Family, and it was, so basically the way that main stages at FSU would work would be, we would have something called theater night, which happened before our technical opening night. So all of the other theater majors, it was like a part of the grade to go see all of the main stages. And usually you'd get that ticket most easily on on that night. So all of the theater majors would go there, and it was always a thing where you would get excited. Like the energy was always incredible. being able to do a main stage during a theater night was always the best part of every show run. But the funniest thing that happened was during theater night for Addams Family. There's the scene in the show where they're at dinner and they pass around a chalice during a song called Full Disclosure. And I played grandma. It was right before my monologue about just weird being grandma. And the chalice, so my friend Brad, who played Bester, like put the cup down and it just fell apart. And everyone's like, audience is dying. And we're like, ah. And then my friend Michael, who played Lurch, he is a genius. He saunters off stage and comes back with just a completely different prop cup. And I just had to go with it. It's just like, I guess this is the new chalice. Here we go.
Like Sprite cup.
You just gotta go with it. And oftentimes, either the audience will never even know that it was a mistake in the first place, or you own it and you run with it and you make a joke of it, which luckily with my character it was a little more acceptable to do because I was the comic relief, so it just kind of worked. But it's amazing how those things will happen, and it sometimes becomes the funniest part of a show. I literally did Dirty Rotten Scoundrels as a teenager, and during the scene, I would come in and twirl around and then be dipped by the main character. And when it happened on a dress rehearsal night, I dip, and then I come back up and I hear everyone laughing, and I'm like, what's going on? And then I noticed that the wig that was on my head was hanging on by a single bobby pin. And, we're like, that's so funny, run off. I come back on, and there's the scene where the two con men characters, one of them has to play like a crazy brother, and it's to scare me away. And he ended up pulling the wig off as part of the bit, as part of a joke, which obviously made me die and was really funny. And then my director thought that was so funny, that mistake that happened, that she made him taking my wig off a part of the actual show. I loved it because, again, it was really funny, but the most frustrating thing was, instead of that, he was supposed to give me a wet willy to just kind of gross me out. So he would do it every time we rehearsed it. He was like, I gotta do it for real. Right in. And I'm like, we just did 6 months of him shoving his saliva-covered finger into my ear for nothing. Just for him to take my wig off. What?
Well, he's also sounds like a shitty actor.
He was a terrible person for numerous different reasons, but that's again, a whole other. He just thought it was so funny, and I'm like,
but yeah, like
now you got canceled for grooming people, so go fuck yourself.
Oh yikes!
Yeah.
But yeah, like people who like to quote unquote method act, they scare me, not because I'm like, oh my gosh, but more so because I'm like, you are just doing like the most unhealthy stuff. Like it's one thing if you're method acting by like, hey, my character is an archer, I'm gonna go learn to do archery. That's one thing. But then it's another, like with like Jared Leto sending people pigs' heads in the mail.
Yeah, when people don't have, when everyone is not consented to the method acting, then you should never involve other people.
Yeah, or if it's like, especially like whenever it comes down to like stuff, if it's like more like intimacy stuff, this is why we have intimacy directors now. But like one actor might be like, oh yeah, I'm just like really in the moment. I hate actors that are like, oh yeah, I was just in the moment with it. I'm like, no. If you're in the moment with it, you're not acting. You're just going insane.
You're just having
like
fun.
One of my favorite Oscar Wilde. Oh my gosh, I love. He has some of the funniest quotes because like there's another actor at the time that was kind of famous too, and like he was like, I just get so exhausted playing this character night after night. Well, like you've played some of the characters. What do you do? And then he just leans over and like in the interview, he just like, have you tried acting? And like whenever people think like, oh yeah, I have to be going crazy to actually play this character, no, like some of the best actors out there don't lose their sanity or don't try to like there are some people like Meryl Streep. I don't even try to counter in some of this stuff because like she's just in a field of her own, doing her own
She's
thing.
Meryl Streep. She's like past actor. She just is Meryl.
I don't think she's human at all because like somebody like in a scene where she was supposed to be like dead, like she like still was there after like okay she fell asleep and somebody went and touched her and her skin was cold, like ice cold, and they're like, how the hell is she doing this?
How did she rewire her biology to match this dead person?
That's different. And then there's a difference between staying in character and then, but it's another thing if you're just being an ass, you know, like if you're just using an excuse to be an ass. But that's a whole other thing. But like, so being in the moment versus being able to separate yourself. Being able to separate yourself from a role is the healthiest thing you can do, even if it is a nice person. Like the character I played, it's still good to separate myself from him because I am not him, he is not me.
That was another big reason that I decided to kind of break away from theater, was that some big epiphanies I had during COVID was, as much as I enjoyed performing, consistently relying on playing someone else always gave me a reason to not work on myself. So when I finally was at home and I had none of those outlets, I was like, fuck it, we might as well do this. And I did it. I went through so much growth in just this last year that it's mind-blowing to me knowing my history. And it's what really led me to want to take that independence and really take ownership of what I perform, because I just, like, I don't want to have to be someone else. I finally got to a place where I like who I am. I think I'm funny, and I think that hopefully that'll be enough to allow me to maybe one day make that my career of making people laugh and feel good.
Yeah.
Who knows if that's gonna happen, but if I had kept pursuing theater only, I don't think I would be in nearly as good of a place as I am today.
No, but yeah, that's also like one of the big reasons why like I have so many of my friends. Like I have one friend who it's her freshman year of college, and like she was posting on like it was one of those like end of the year like challenge things. So it's like one of the days was like post like some hobbies you had that you did this year, and like she's a theater major, and all of her stuff was just theater and dance, and she's like musical theater dance person, and I'm like, yes, but like you can't solely do like that's why like when some people like don't choose to pursue the arts or something like that, and sometimes like no you should, you're really good at it, but sometimes they just want to keep it a hobby. And especially after a while, like because I realized that like maybe that might be their only hobby, and they're like, but like if you're in theater or whatever you do, your job cannot also be your hobby. And I feel like that's a big thing. Like so like even if Ryan, like even if like you don't go into like professionally making films, then you're just like doing them for like hobbies purposes, that's good. Sorry. But it's yeah, that's a big thing that always happens with the arts, is that sometimes people they don't really, you know, try to find a hobby outside of what they're doing, because like, oh yeah, I love what I do anyway, so why should I worry about that? So and then that just leads to bigger mental health stuff. And yeah.
I
I'm kind of wondering. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I didn't realize how much I didn't know about myself until I was forced to stop doing theater because of COVID. I didn't even know what aesthetic I had. And now my entire room is covered with rainbows because I actually figured out how happy they made me. I was so deeply running away from everything I was scared to face within myself. And doing theater gave me the excuse to do that. And I'm honestly grateful that I was able to have the opportunity to still have this growth, because I did lose myself in theater. I was so addicted to the feeling of admiration and community that I allowed myself to be taken advantage of. I allowed myself to be insulted and just consistently put down. I don't think this is the case with most industries, but a lot of it is very abusive. And now I think people are finally starting to not become aware of it, but are noticing that the tides are changing, and that not only can we finally express our frustrations, but they may actually get people to be receptive. and can actually
Yeah.
spark a change.
No, because I think people were aware of them for a while, but people were just in that mentality of, this is the way it is, this is the way it's always been done. That's just how it is. But that's what I've really loved about the theater industry recently. It's just that everybody's just been kind of like, everybody up and coming in it, and then some people who are still in it being like, yeah, no, we need to change if we're gonna have sustainable and and a thriving community. Like, we have to change a lot of stuff, and I feel like that's, especially with COVID, with people not being in work and just kind of chilling at home instead of doing what they need, what they do typically, just coming to terms with a lot of things. And it's like, no, we are going to change this. So COVID was both a blessing and a curse, in the sense that, yes, COVID's horrible. I have it right now.
It is so terrible, but I'm a very firm believer in everything happens for a reason, which is hard to say because I'm not going to say that as people have lost family members. I don't want to say that happened for a reason, but it in a lot of the ways, terrible things happen for a reason too, I try to believe, and it's what's helped me get through day by day. It helps me get through the anxiety. But I am going to have to pop out of here because your girl has got one busy week and needs her sleep. So.
Well, Ariel, it was very nice having you on.
Yes.
Before we head out, do you have any social media or anything for the audience?
So yes, I do. I can. I have Instagram, which is abacon1022, abacon1022. And then my Twitter is just my name, Ariel, but instead of Baron, it is also Bacon, Ariel Bacon, which, before I go, I will tell the story of why Bacon is all of my handles, because a few years ago, I got a CPS certification card printed out, and they misspelled Baron as Bacon. So now that is my legacy. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. It's been awesome talking with you. It's really nice meeting you, Nick, and Nicholas or Nick. Just want to make sure.
Either one.
Either is fine. Okay, cool. Really great talking to you guys, and best of luck. I hope you guys have an amazing new year and success in all of your projects and happiness until the day you die.
Everyone, South Florida, check Ariel out tomorrow night. She's
yes. Oh yes. Tomorrow night I will be at Taurus in Miami, doing a set. And let's hope I don't bomb. Fingers crossed.
Open. You do well.
All right, bye guys.
See ya. Nick, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask this while she was on, but I know she had to go early. So we've had a lot of theater to screen adaptations. We've had West Side Story, In the Heights, and who could forget Dear Evan Hansen.
I wish to forget that was ever made a movie, but go on.
I did forget about that till I was recording. I was like, oh yeah, that was a thing this year. What do you want to see adapted on the screen?
I can tell you one I don't want to see adapted that looks like it's actually going to happen, and that's Wicked. I don't think Wicked is going to be a good movie at all. I'm happy to see a Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, and that's about it. But after seeing it on stage, I don't think it's going to translate that well to film. But ones that I think, oh my gosh, I don't know, because a lot of stuff that I thought would work has been out. One of the ones I wanted for the longest time was In the Heights. But I can't think off the top of my head right now. I think an Avenue Q film adaptation would be a lot of fun. Because I think, especially since it is supposed to be structured like Sesame Street, I think it'd be really funny to have something that embraces that even more with the TV setup. Of how a episode of Sesame Street might go. So I think that'd be really fun to see Avenue Q in that regard, but Avenue Q isn't really it's going through some stuff right now. If it gets restructured a little bit, I think it needs another look at for some stuff, because there's some stuff in it that's it was that funny haha post-racial 2000s humor, whereas we're just gonna be super offensive and blame you for it.
I don't know much about it. I haven't seen it. I know One or two.
I mean, it's a good show overall. There's just a few bits in it that I'm like, we could go back to that. Yeah, we could go back to it. I mean, it's funny to think about because the guy who wrote the music for Avenue Q also wrote it for Book of Mormon, and he also wrote Frozen and Coco with his wife, Robert Lopez. Yeah, so the guy who wrote Avenue Q and Book of Mormon, the music for it at least, also wrote Let It Go.
I think that'd be a hit. I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, there's I don't know, cause like I can't think of anything right now that hasn't already been a movie. Because the big thing with Broadway right now is they like taking movies and making them making movies into musicals. Because right now there's a Mrs. Doubtfire musical on Broadway. Honestly, all the musicals on Broadway are already based off of something else. Like Jagged Little Pill just closed, but based off the album Jagged Little Pill. Moulin Rouge based off of the movie. There was a Karate Kid and Back to the Future musical in previews before COVID happened. But yeah, so that's my thing that I don't really like with Broadway right now. Is it's just becoming way too commercialized and not actually trying to find good ideas. Which is why I also mentioned that you might see a big rise in regional theater because that's probably where you're going to get a lot of your really cool new stuff and a lot more interesting stuff, in my opinion. But yeah,
I think there are two things for me. There's really only one answer, and I mean this first one I'm saying is more of a joke, but the first one is Escape to Margaritaville because I think that'd be awful. I think
I heard good things about the musical. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Escape to Margaritaville myself, but that's because it's Jimmy Buffett, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not personally a big Jimmy Buffett guy. I think all of his stuff sounds the same, so it's a musical that just sounds entirely the same to me. But yeah, but what's the other one?
I like Jimmy Buffett because I'm just like a decrepit dad like that. But no, I mean that sounds pretty bad. But I think be like ironically bad. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I think I could see it being done. But yeah, the you see you had another one?
the actual thing I want to see, Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. That'd be incredible. Dudes would be like, okay, dudes want like Amazing Spider-Man 3. They want Spider-Man 4. And they should just come out with like, oh, Andrew Garfield is back, but it's not Amazing Spider-Man 3. We're adapting Turn Off the Dark.
He was just in Tick Tick Boom, so that that would be funny. No, but I don't know. Yeah, there's not a whole lot. I think that if it's made for the stage, it's really made for the stage, and it's like, because that's one of the biggest hardest things is bridging film and musicals together. Because a lot of that's why I really like the direction of West Side Story was really good. And that's why in the Heights and West Side Story worked very, very well. And same thing with Tick Tick Boom, is that with film, like I said, film is very focused on realism, or like not even realism, but it's trying to convince you like this is a real situation that's happening. Like obviously we know, hey, that's Emily Blunt in the bathtub in A Quiet Place, you know. But with film, it's more, since you can do a lot more with it and you can do a lot more trickery, it's more like, yes, we're trying to immerse you in the world. Whereas with a musical, if it's on stage, you know, you're just kind of, as I said, with that suspension of disbelief. So trying to combine two different things that are opposing each other, one that's like, no, we're not really trying to like fool you, with one that's like, yes, we are trying to fool you. Like having those mesh together with those two different styles is really, really hard. And a lot of people, like, whenever they try to direct a musical movie, a movie musical, that's what they lose sight of, is that there's like almost like a sense of magic and mysticism with it. So like, even though, because like people are singing and dancing out of nowhere in theater, like the main theory behind that, in case people, because I know that gets made fun of a lot, like, why are we singing and dancing? But the main theory behind it comes from, the emotion gets so high in a scene that we have to sing, and then once singing and music can't convey what we feel, that goes to dance. And that's why characters dance and sing in a show, is because the emotions and the stakes get so high that it all just comes out through those means.
Somebody said, you gave me a great idea. He said Emily Blunt, Quiet Place the musical. I don't know how that would work, but we have
It
the
wouldn't.
technology. We can make it happen.
Oh my god. But yeah, so I forgot what I was saying, but yeah, that's why like I really like those three particularly, because that came out recently. And why Dear Evan Hansen fell a little flat for a lot of people was because they treated the movie version of it like a straight up movie. Whereas they didn't really, they were like, no, yeah, this is this moment happening. But musical theater plays around with a bunch of different realities. You have, your song reality and then the show reality. Like there's a bunch of different stuff playing at once, and there's a lot of rules being bent. Whereas with film, that typically doesn't happen as much. As typically you're set in one reality, unless that's the whole premise of the film, is to be distorting between realities. Um, but yeah, so that's why Dear Hansen fell flat, was just because the direction wasn't going for what musicals accomplish in the first place, and they lost sight of what a musical is, and were only focused on making a movie. Whereas with Into the Heights and Tick Tick Boom and West Side Story, they knew what worked for film, but then they also were bringing in the heart of musicals into that, and that's why those worked so well.
And that's just the most important part of any adaptation, the word adapt. And I mean, you just think of, any comic book movie or any show that was a movie that's now, a musical. And, you have to work within um, the boundaries of your medium and just like, yeah, there are a lot of movies out there that are adaptations like Evan Hansen that are just like, okay, just get a camera in front of it and it's a movie now. It's gonna work.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, and like, because like there are some shows, like I know people are like, oh, we want a movie version of Hamilton, but I'm like, no. The pro shot that is on that is on Disney Plus is perfectly fine, because the whole premise is that's supposed to be on a bare stage, or looks like it's on a barren stage that's still being built. Because the whole point of the show is that, oh yeah, America is still being built. It's an ongoing construction. It's an ongoing experiment. Is like, and like that's what like the whole set and like the whole concept of the show is. That's why it's very minimalistic. So seeing it put into a movie would kind of defeat some of the purpose of the show. So like you said, adaptation is a big thing, and that's why some musical movies work really well, like In the Heights and West Side Story. Because West Side Story, like Spielberg did a great job, and it needed to be redone with the proper casting this time. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on musical movies.
yeah, I haven't seen it West Side Story yet. I was going to, but then I got infected and everything, which really sucks. The virus, but there's so
It's
many stuff I want to watch. So like that, Nightmare Alley, Licorice Pizza.
Yeah, my girlfriend went and saw Nightmare Alley and said it was very, very good.
Yeah, I bet. Oh, it's killing me, dude.
Yeah, said it was like she said she didn't think it was that like horror, but like she knew it was like it's more horror adjacent is how she described it. Kind of like how like The Shape of Water could be horror, but like it's not. It's just kind of like horror adjacent, where it's like kind of creepy at certain parts, but more about other stuff.
Well, it's also like a remake, so there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. But yeah, so um any other things about theater that you want to talk about, Ryan, or any other questions you had?
Uh, I guess finishing things off here, unless you had anything
I
else.
mean, yeah, I guess like just kind of like a last little closing remark.
Well, I do have a
Before
question. Like,
oh, you do have a question?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
cool. Yeah, shoot.
yeah, man. What you excited for this upcoming year? Like any big projects or anything?
Well, I mean, in January, I'm going to be auditioning for grad schools and applying to grad schools, which will be exciting. SpongeBob at KSU, Kennesaw State University up in Kennesaw, Georgia. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be those first 2 weeks of April or something like that. And if you guys want tickets, you go to ticketing.kennesaw.edu. I have that link memorized because they made us memorize it my freshman year. Don't know why, but they did. But yeah, that's really all I have in store right now. I mean, most of it will probably, like, this summer might be me teaching a lot more at the Alliance. But yeah, that's really it.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm just I don't know. My mom says I should like get involved in like local theater and like yeah, maybe. It's just
Yeah.
the big thing uh that I want to bring up earlier I was thinking about just me doing stand up. I mean, I can't really do what you guys do. I mean, I have like half a page to memorize and just do it on stage and you guys are like have your entire scripts just ready. It's like, geez, my memory.
Yeah, no, yeah, there was a show. Excuse me. There was a show that we did at Kennesaw called Everybody, and it's a adaptation of a play called of a Christian morality play from medieval times. Literally, it's a piece of medieval theater. I had to study it for class, and it's yeah, so the Christian morality Everyman. But in this updated version, uh, there's an ensemble group of characters called the Somebodies, and every night they have a lottery system that determines who gets to play what character. Like everybody is a character. Not everybody is a character, but the
Yeah,
character's name is everybody.
I got
Uh,
you.
so but yeah, but all the cast members have a lottery system each night to determine who's going to be the next character. There were a few, like 3 people who were set like that is their role, but everybody else, it was just random as to who you would get every night, and you had to essentially learn the entire script.
Jeez.
Yeah, and in the opening monologue was about like 15 minutes of just him talking.
Wow.
Yeah, it was insane. But
I remember
yeah,
so I was best man for Cole Kitchen's wedding.
uh-huh.
I had my speech. As like, I like to stick to script. I don't ever really, go off because I feel like it loses, any profound meaning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I try ad libbing, but um, I was killing myself over like this speech. It was only like 5 or 6 sentences, maybe even 7. But I got up, said one sentence, forgot it, took my script out, and then just looked at it and just like tossed it aside, and then just made this whole thing, and then I like said flawlessly, but
Mhm.
I was like, geez, like, could you guys tell like I completely forgot my lines up there? And they're like, no, we just saw it was an act, dude. Thought you're just being
Yeah.
funny. Like, hey, that's pretty nice at least.
Yeah. But yeah, like just I guess some closing remarks before we finish up here. Like I know, like at the beginning, we kind of harped on like like it was almost a little vent session between us over here about like some stuff in the theater industry that we just didn't like, but like that is a very small number of it. And I just kind of want to like the arts, and theater specifically, like it's such a great place. I love theater because I think it's like the place where all the arts get to come together, and yeah, so like it's just like a nice little house everybody can come to, and like you know, and like there definitely does need to be a lot more outreach, I think, from theater companies. That's just a personal thing, but you are seeing a lot more. But I just think the arts education, even theater specifically, is like education in humanity. It's all about putting yourself in somebody else's and like trying shoes and like just trying to learn about the world and learn about each other by like actually doing that stuff. So, and I think it's a great thing, arts education and stuff like that. So if you guys ever get opportunities, even if it's not anything people in specifically, go support the arts because it does mean a lot to the artists on stage, and then also it just kind of helps foster a better community that you're in, and just becoming more immersed in the arts, whether it is theater or dance, or maybe it is with a band or orchestra, chorus, whatever that may be. Becoming more involved in it is, even if it's just showing up, does a whole lot. So if you guys ever get the chance, just go see a random community theater production. It might suck, but like, they can't get better unless they get more funding, and arts funding is already so slim to come by anyways. So go and try to support fellow artists out there, and just go see a show. It can be expensive, but if you're in regional areas like Atlanta, typically they have an industry night, so nobody knows if you work in the industry or not. But typically those are just the cheap nights. And like, I know Actors Express has on Wednesday nights, they typically have $60 tickets. Wednesday nights are pay what you can night. I've literally paid $1 and went and saw a great show. So just find those deals because they're out there. So it can be very expensive, but it can be affordable if you know where to look. So just go out there and support.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway and great advice for the viewers. But yeah, it's about time we close up shop for the night. Nick, where can the audience find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. That's really where I'm active, at Lincoln2000. That is LINKN, and then 2000, like 2000. So, and like,
Missing a zero.
what?
You're missing a zero there. You said
2000. No,
Oh shit. Yeah,
that'd
you're
be
right.
20,000. Yeah.
Dang, dude, I'm catching L's live.
Yeah, but yeah, so Lincoln 2000, Link as in Link from The Legend of Zelda, or a chain link, and then the letter N as in Nick, and then 2000, like the number.
Cool. Yeah, well, yeah, it's closing time, but yeah, stay tuned for the next episode, next guest to be announced. So I've been at Riley Tiger, and I'll see ya.